what we are going to talk about is, the big question on everybody's, well, one of the many big questions on everybody's minds as we head into the fall. Normally we're looking at, cold and flu season. This year we've got a little bit more of an even more complex dynamic with, you've got colds, you've got flu, you've got COVID. So you got three issues that we all are kind of typically dealing with. Right now is the time for flu shots. A lot of people get them, some don't. Many offices, provide them, or CVS or et cetera. So everybody's kind of doing that right now. But as we get further into October, and right now it's like 80 degrees outside, so it certainly doesn't feel like fall, but there have been some pretty cold mornings recently. So we are definitely, well into fall. So right now is a good time to really start thinking about how to best prepare ourselves, prepare our bodies, do what we can to boost, and I'll talk about whether we can really boost our immunity or not, but to kind of shore up our immunity before the cold and flu season really gets, fully underway. Okay, so what are we actually up against? So the flu season, you can technically get the flu anytime, but fall and winter are the typical seasons when we see the highest rates of incidence. October, kind of mid to late October, is really when it starts to pick up steam. You start to hear about more people coming down with it. If you go to your doctor, usually anywhere from like September to early October is when they recommend you get your flu shot. And then usually we see the peak of the flu season anywhere from December to February, occasionally as late as March, but December, January, February, those tend to be the big months for flu season, at least in the US. The numbers on an annual basis do vary pretty widely, but a lot of people, it's a big deal. Between 9 and 45 million people get sick each year with the flu. That's anywhere from 140 to 810,000 hospitalizations. And since 2010, every year there have been anywhere from 12,000 to 61,000 deaths as a result of the flu. So we are coming into fall, facing these potential issues with the flu. And then you also have just the common cold. While people don't typically die from the cold, if the cold does kind of develop into something more significant, if it develops into pneumonia, or if you have a compromised immune system, and you get a cold that then leads to something else, it can become quite serious. But typically your common cold is not going to be something that requires either hospitalization or can be fatal. But most people do in the end have at least 2 to 3 colds a year. And part of the reason for that is that there are more than 200 viruses that are known to cause the common cold. So, your immune system is pretty impressive with what it can do, its capability. But that's a lot of different viruses that maybe a lot of germs, different types of germs that may be coming at you. So that's why the common cold happens to really everybody, from the older and sicker to the healthy and very, the young and very healthy. So something we all will have to deal with this fall and winter at some point. Now, quite often when you start feeling sick, I'm sure every one of us has been in this position before. Maybe your head hurts. Maybe you're feeling just a little bit off. Maybe you're coughing, feeling a little bit tired. Usually you've got a stuffy nose. We all get the sniffles around this time of year. And in addition to being really annoying, it can also be, of course, an indicator of something more serious. So how many of us have sat there and said, do I have just a cold, or is this the flu? The good news is that the difference is usually pretty stark. You can think of the flu as kind of just a really hyped up, like a cold on steroids, right? But there are some differences. A cold typically comes on quite gradually, whereas the flu can hit you like that. Usually you don't have a fever when you have just a cold. One of the hallmarks of the flu is having those body aches, just feeling just awful all over. And then the chills, you're not going to get those chills with the common cold. Sneezing, we'll actually talk about the next slide, but chest discomfort, stuffy nose, sore throat, those are all quite frequent with both the cold and the flu. And then those bad kind of debilitating headaches, those are more likely to happen with the flu. So, you know, as I've said before in the past, you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. So if you are feeling bad and you just aren't sure, you think it's the cold, but you just want to be sure, you know, always seek out advice from a medical professional. It's better to be safe than sorry. Now, we've got the cold versus flu issue, and then you throw in COVID, right? What a big wrench in those works. So I saw this morning, anyway, the statistics so far as of today, that in the United States alone, we've had 7.73 million cases of COVID. Now, the vast majority of people have recovered, but that is still more than 200,000 deaths to date. That number is, I think they said on the news this morning that is actually more deaths from COVID since it started in the US than the previous 5 flu seasons. So, you know, as we all are perhaps painfully aware, it is a very serious thing to consider. And then we're all probably getting a little bit nervous because we're, you know, all of us will get sick in some capacity this fall or winter, most likely, probably with just a common cold, but maybe the flu, hopefully not COVID, but there are a lot of things that present similarly with all three. So it's really good to kind of study up and remind yourself what the symptoms are for all three. So if you do start to feel under the weather, you at least have a fairly you know, well-educated guess as to what you have. Again, always seek the professional advice and consultation if you feel bad. But this is kind of a layout of what the main differences are between the cold, the flu, and the coronavirus. So we already covered the cold versus flu. The big differences with COVID, you know, sneezing is not a symptom of COVID. It happens quite often with your common cold, but so far COVID has not shown to cause sneezing. But the biggest symptoms really are quite a high fever. That's usually anything above like 100.3 or 101. Shortness of breath. I'm sure you've all heard the horror stories of people who just really are struggling for breath, either quarantining at home or in the hospital on a respirator. That fatigue, that's kind of just lasting fatigue and just complete and utter tiredness. That is something that does also happen with the flu. From my understanding, the fatigue associated with COVID typically is even more profound than that with the flu. So that's another pretty hallmark symptom of COVID. And then this is the big one that is really quite different from anything else, which is the loss of taste and or smell. Sometimes you may experience that to a certain extent with something with a cold or with a flu, simply because you're so blocked up and you're sniffling and you just literally can't breathe because your nose is so blocked up. But this is a total and complete loss of any taste or smell sensation. So if you start experiencing that, it's a pretty good sign that you might want to, go get tested and call your doctor. Now, the flu shot, I won't get into the vaccination debate, but some people really are very diligent about getting their flu shots every year. Some people are not. I will admit I don't always get it every year. I will this year out of, an abundance of precaution because of COVID. My kids always get it. My husband always does. But, this year especially, they are saying that, so this is a quote directly from the CDC's website, that it is more important than ever to get a flu vaccine, to get that flu shot this year, to help just kind of reduce the chances of getting sick. The reality is that if you are ill if you are sick in any way, your body, your immune system is focused on battling whatever you have. So if you do have even just a common cold, or if you do have the flu, and it's not COVID, your immune system is busy. Your immune system is working on overdrive to fight what is currently ailing you. If you are then exposed to somebody who has COVID, it's like it's like a half open door, right? So instead of having that fully closed door to prevent you from getting COVID or to prevent it from developing into a severe case, if your immune system is already compromised by something else, that just leaves the door open for COVID or something equally serious to come in and make things even worse. So I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to tell you have to get a flu shot, but this is what the CDC is saying. There are a few exceptions, of course. Children under the age of 6 months are not recommended to have a flu shot. And then there are some allergies, like if you have not been getting flu shots in the past because you've talked to your doctor and you have an allergy to one of the ingredients. Egg allergies are a fairly common barrier to getting flu shots. There is some workaround with that one, I understand, so you would want to talk to your doctor, but obviously if your doctor has suggested that you not get a flu shot in the past, don't go around them and go get one at CVS without consulting with them first. But in any event, if you are healthy, have no allergies, and when you haven't gotten it yet, it might be certainly worth thinking about. Again, I know they do them at CVS very quickly. Insurance may pay for it, or it might be just cheap, but you can get them at pretty much any pharmacy. Now, the immune system. So what actually is it? Basically it is the misconception about the immune system is that when you are experiencing symptoms like a fever, or you're coughing a lot, your chest feels really congested, you might be cursing your immune system for being weak when you start feeling those things. But the reality is that those responses that are presenting in your body are actually the immune system doing what it's supposed to do. So we hear about our white blood cells, right? Those are the attack vehicles, those are the cells that attack the invading germs in your body. So when you do have those symptoms, it's actually, I won't say it's a good thing, but it does mean that your immune system is actually working as it should be. Now, there is also a good amount of discussion online about, you see these ads, especially right now, because marketers are looking to convince us to buy their products, for products that will boost your immune system and make your immune system stronger. Doctors, immunologists, what they want us all to know is that what you are really looking to do is have a more balanced immune system. It's not necessarily that you want a stronger immune system. And the reason for that is that the immune system is an incredibly complex system. It's not one individual system or part of your body that is fighting germs. It's extremely complicated, and there's a lot that doctors still don't understand. And it's an ever-changing system of cells that are involved in keeping your immune system functioning. So there's no way to really know exactly which cells to target. There isn't necessarily a way to actually target the different cells. So the cells are constantly regenerating. Some of them are designated to fighting certain germs, others to other germs. It's incredibly complicated, and you don't want to add more cells to your body because, again, you don't know which cells to target, and you don't want to mess with that balance. As sometimes you may hear about when you talk about like cleanses, right? Cleanses are one area. I'm not a big fan of that idea because your body has ways to cleanse itself of toxins, etc. Your body has the immune system similarly to fight germs and disease. So while you do want to work on your lifestyle, the lifestyle factors that can help, create a more balanced immune system, there's no way to actually add more cells to make it what you might think would be stronger, if that makes sense. So, but anyway, this picture, it just shows what kind of the usual suspects are when you're talking about your immune system. When you get sick sometimes, you might, maybe it's happened to you, or maybe you just hear about it, like your lymph nodes might get swollen. That's usually a sign that you are ill. Your tonsils it doesn't happen as much anymore, but a couple decades ago, it wasn't unusual for people to have their tonsils removed because they would become quite easily inflamed when somebody was ill. Bone marrow is another part of the immune system. You hear about bone marrow transplants. So again, it's a very complex system, and you can see it kind of takes all different systems all over the body. So knowing that it is very complex and we can't necessarily target any specific aspect of our immune system, does that mean that we should give up? Absolutely not. As with anything, leading a healthy lifestyle is only going to improve your body's ability to fight off germs and infections. So, that said, the effectiveness of your immune system is dependent on many different factors. Your genes do play a role. Doctors are not sure how big that role is, but it certainly is a factor in how effective your immune system is. How many germs, your lifetime germ exposure. You hear about, so daycares are a great example. Like when you put your kid in a daycare for the first time, that first year they are sick all the time. It feels like they will never actually be in school because they're always home with something. But the truth is that what's happening is their immune system is getting acclimated to these different germs, and then later in life, when they reach 5, 6, 7 and older, they will be sick less because they have been exposed to a lot of different germs, and the body has figured out how to prevent or protect against those germs. So germ exposure is not in and of itself an inherently bad thing. If you're healthy and you've got a pretty healthy immune system, it's actually good to be exposed to germs. The flu shot, a lot of vaccines are in fact mild doses of a particular strain of a virus, because that is how it's like practice. It gives your body practice at building up defenses against certain viruses. So, and then of course, lifestyle factors, which I'll talk about in a minute. Those always come into any time you're talking about a healthier body. And then, age certainly, as we get older, your immune system's effectiveness and capability, ability to fight off infection just naturally reduces. It naturally is harder for your body to fight off infection. So as you get older, one could argue that those lifestyle factors are almost even more important. So something to keep in mind. So how can we help ourselves? As we have all been inundated with these images with COVID, there is still a lot of wisdom in just, washing your hands often, wiping down surfaces with antibiotic wipes, covering your mouth when you sneeze and cough. I'm always yelling at my son to do that. It's disgusting, but don't cough into your hand, don't sneeze into your hand, but into the crook of your elbow, or somewhere that you're not instantly going to then share the love and transfer the germs. Smoking, of course, we all know is very bad for you, and it's just going to weaken your immune system. Alcohol consumption is fine, but just in moderation. Diet, as with anything, you are what you eat. So having a healthy, balanced diet will help ensure that you get the vitamins and minerals needed to help maintain that healthy, balanced immune system. Exercise, of course. So if you're not challenging yourself on a daily basis in some physical way, I definitely suggest you start now. We've got a lot of ideas at DLS and a lot of great programs. So you've got resources at your fingertips. Get your Z's, get your sleep. A good, healthy amount of sleep is critical for having a healthy immune system. Minimize your stress levels. Easier said than done. I know we've talked a lot in the past about how to manage stress, how to minimize it. It's not realistic, for any of us to not have stress in our lives, and a little bit of stress is certainly good for your body. But finding ways to handle it, to kind of spread it out, and make sure that you have outlets for that stress can help make sure that your immune system is not compromised. And then supplements, I'll talk about that. That's something that comes up a lot, especially around October when fall hits. Sometimes you see people pop in vitamin C supplements, like their breath mints. Not generally recommended, but we'll talk about that here shortly. So vitamins, though, not talking about supplements, but vitamins are key to your immune system. 3 of the big ones that really help to create that balance, help create and maintain that balanced immune system are vitamin C. That protects vitamin C. The problem with vitamin C is that your body doesn't naturally produce it. and it doesn't naturally store it. So you do have to get all of it from your diet in some way. But vitamin C is perhaps the biggest influence as far as vitamins and minerals on the immune system. It protects those cells from damage from free radicals, and it's very critical in maintaining healthy skin, your blood vessel health, and maintaining the lining of your blood vessels, also bone health and cartilage health. Vitamin B6 as well. It helps support the biochemical reactions that must occur in the immune system for these cells to go out and fight the germs. And then vitamin E as an extremely powerful antioxidant and helps fight off infections. So what should we eat to make sure our diet is up to snuff? Vitamin C, of course, I think we all know that, oranges, lemons, grapefruit, any citrus fruits are a great source of vitamin C. Bell peppers, the brighter the better. Spinach, Popeye had the right idea. Spinach really is one of nature's superfoods. Kale and broccoli, those are some really good sources of vitamin C. I've mentioned this in the past about vitamin C, but if possible, it's always good to eat vitamin C with iron. Spinach actually has a good amount of iron in it as well. If you are a meat eater and you're eating, you're including meat in your meal, you want to make sure that you also include some kind of vitamin C in that meal if possible, because iron is better absorbed when it is also accompanied by vitamin C. Vitamin B6, some common sources of that are chicken, salmon, tuna, spinach to a certain extent, and chickpeas. And then vitamin E, nuts and seeds are really the big supplier of those. A lot of these foods you may recognize from those blue zones. So there's a lot of crossover here. More good foods for your body. We've talked about the power of herbs and spices. So ginger is fantastic for your body. Put some in a smoothie, sprinkle a little bit on a stir fry. Sometimes, it's really good in a dessert. You can make some like ginger scones or something like that. Yogurt and other probiotics. Probiotics are good you hear about how good they are for balancing out your, gut health. So yogurt, other probiotics are any fermented foods. So that can include things like pickles or kimchi. Kombucha was a big thing a couple of years ago. That was all the rage. I know some people still really enjoy it, but they are really good for your gut health and also for your immune system overall. Turmeric, one of the healthiest spices you can include in your diet. Green tea, other teas, garlic, oysters, any berries, and sweet potatoes. Pretty much any whole food, whole vegetable food, whole fruits, any whole grains that are not horribly refined are going to be good for helping to keep your immune system healthy. Exercise. Of course, like what else can I say? We all know what exercise does for you. It improves your cardiovascular health, lowers your blood pressure, and controls your body weight and BMI. Along with the first point there, improving cardiovascular health, exercise helps allow that good circulation, which in turn allows those cells of the immune system to move freely and effectively. So it's all interconnected. And then this link, I'll send out these slides after the presentation, but this is a good list. It's a good slideshow of exercises that are, you can take 1, 2, I think there were like 20 on the list. So it's best exercises if you just started working out. I'm not saying that everybody here is just starting to work out, quite the opposite in many ways. But there's still some really good information here. So it's just a little bit of a boost to kind of get you started. Now sleep. Like I said before, a lack of sleep, especially a chronic lack of sleep, is very detrimental to the proper functioning of your immune system. What happens when you sleep is your body releases these cytokines. These are proteins that are released that you need when your body is fighting off an infection. So when you, Angus, I'm doing something. So if you are not sleeping, especially if you're waking up a lot, you never get into those deeper levels of sleep, your body is not releasing these proteins, which in turn makes your body more prone to infection and increases the risk of, not only cold, flu, COVID, but other other diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes. It can lead to an increase in obesity. Now, everybody's different in terms of how much sleep they really need to be healthy and function properly. But for most healthy adults, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night is the recommended amount of sleep. So now, managing stress levels. We've talked a lot about this in the past. I won't go too deeply into this, but there has been a lot of research on the link between emotional stress and physical maladies. Your body responds in some pretty kind of objectively amazing ways when you're really stressed. So it's really good to try to minimize or at least mitigate your stress levels. Like I said, if you have something in your life that's causing you an inordinate amount of stress, take a step back, talk to somebody you trust, and see if there's a way that you can either, maybe you can't get that source of stress out of your life completely, but ask for help or figure out ways that you can better manage that issue that will help bring your stress levels down. In addition, when you are very stressed, your body releases hormones that can suppress the effectiveness of the immune system. So if you're chronically stressed, that's a whole lot of hormones being just pumped throughout your body. If you're really stressed, sometimes you feel kind of amped up and tense. That's not good for your body. So again, a little bit of stress is normal and fine, but if you've got some chronic stress going on, you need to try to figure out a way to manage that for your health. Now, finally, just about 4 o'clock, I want to address 2 myths that you hear quite frequently around this time of year. The first one, everybody probably heard this growing up, you'll catch your cold. You'll catch a cold if you go outside not wearing a jacket in the winter. So there's a kind of prevalent thought out there that being cold weakens the immune system and makes you more susceptible to colds and the flu, etc. And the reality is somewhat different. Of course, if you're chronically outside wearing just a t-shirt in sub-zero temperatures, you're probably setting yourself up for something bad. But the reason that people tend to get sicker when the weather is cold is, first, it's just a common sense reason, really. If you think about it, we're inside more when it's cold outside. So we are in close quarters with other people during the cold and flu season, which in turn leads to more transmission of these, the flu, etc. So your opportunity for getting sick is greater in the colder months. And the second reason is, I forgot to put a number 2 there, but is that the influenza virus does stay airborne longer when the air is cold and less humid. So again, you're inside and closer quarters, the virus is staying longer in the air. We don't know yet if the COVID virus does the same thing. It may well do that. So these are the reasons that the cold and flu season typically is during those colder months. And then the second myth that I already addressed a little bit before was that you can take, popping a bunch of supplements will boost your immune system and kind of make you immune to getting sick. And the truth is, no, absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with taking an occasional supplement. I've mentioned before in other webinars how vitamin D is the most commonly prescribed supplement. A lot of people are vitamin D deficient. I've been prescribed iron supplements in the past. So talk to your doctor. Like I mentioned before, the immune system is very complex. So popping a bunch of vitamin C is not going to suddenly give you a stronger, amazing, superhero-like immune system. To be honest, if you have too much of any one vitamin or mineral, you can actually OD on vitamins and minerals. So, talk to your doctor before you start taking a supplement. Supplements, this is another thing to keep in mind, they are not regulated by the FDA. Most are probably fine. It's probably not going to hurt you if you take one supplement a day, but still, talk to your doctor. There's no evidence to support the use of supplements in achieving a more balanced immune system. So, if you eat a healthy, balanced diet, that should provide enough of all of those vitamins and minerals you need for a healthy, balanced body. So.